What's in store for Apple's range of 2018 iPhones?
And is it really worth getting excited about 8K TV? Vertical Hold, Behind the Tech News, is proudly brought to you by Belkin. Welcome to Vertical Hold, Behind the Tech News, where we talk to Australia's leading technology journalists to get the stories behind the news of the week. I'm Adam Turner, and I'm joined by a man who kind of looks better in low res, Alex Kidman, as we go behind the headlines in search of the big picture.
I'm an 8-bit man.
We're also joined once again to delve into the tech news of the week by the man with a plan, picker.com.au editor Lee Stark. Lee, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, guys.
So there's a lot happening this week, but first we'll cross over to the news desk. Alex, what's happening in tech news?
Google is set to bring its Google One cloud storage service to Australia. Unlike regular Google Drive, Google One offers shared family storage options, as well as a range of special discounts on other Google services and specific support for Google devices. Google hasn't revealed local pricing for Google One in Australia, simply stating that it's due to appear in the coming weeks.
YouTube fans can brace themselves for an advertising onslaught as the streaming video giant prepares to offer up more unskippable ads which run for longer. The change will force viewers to sit through ads of up to 15 to 20 seconds, increasing from the typical length of about 5 seconds for an unskippable ad. YouTube is also offering the ability to run non-skippable ads to a much wider range of YouTube content creators. The push for more unskippable ads on YouTube makes the YouTube Red subscription seem like an even better deal, as it kills the ads even though there's not a lot of original content to watch at this point.
TPG and Vodafone have officially confirmed that they're intending to merge. Calling it a match made in heaven, Vodafone CEO Inoki Beretta said that the intent was to create a challenger brand to take on the likes of Telstra and Optus in both broadband and mobile markets. The combined company will be known as TPG, but it's already stated that it intends to keep running multiple brands in the future.
Speaking of ads in streaming video, Facebook is bringing its Watch platform to Australia, letting content creators publish videos and keep 55% of the advertising revenue. At the same time, the social media giant is rolling out its ad breaks program in Australia to allow page owners to insert mid-roll and pre-roll video ads. This includes short breaks of up to 15 seconds during a live video stream. So Alex, it looks like it's official, TPG and Vodafone are getting it on. Is this worth getting excited about? What's it going to mean for Australians?
Well, while it's still early days in the merger talks, there are going to be some pretty significant impacts fairly soon. On the media call that they had for the merger, they were very busily trying to say, oh, well, it'll be business as usual. All of our usual stuff will keep running. We'll keep all the brands going. But reading between the lines, there's going to be some pretty significant changes coming. As an example, when TPG CEO, and in fact the guy who will end up running the combined company, which will still be called TPG, David Teo, was challenged on that $9.99 unlimited plan that TPG said it was going to bring to market. He really danced around whether or not they'd continue to offer it, before eventually kind of admitting without admitting that they're not going to, saying, oh, you know, who knows, what we offer could be even better value because we're going to look at bundled plans instead, which is pretty much a case of, that's not coming to market. That's not a huge shock. But there's a lot of other kind of unanswered questions in there. TPG's actually got a couple of its sub-brands which offer mobile services, but they're on Optus, and their whole thing here is that they're going to end up with one mobile network and one fixed broadband network. So it's going to be a bit of a messy merger, but it's going to be quite interesting in that big end of telco town, and at the same time kind of challenging for the small MVNOs.
So, Lee, we've been talking for a while on the show about how TPG would come in and be the fourth operator and shake everything up. Now that that's not going to happen, do you think that this is a bit of a missed opportunity, or how do you think with it, getting the two budget players to get together, is that good or bad for competition?
I don't know if it's good for competition. I do think it's a missed opportunity. I was really looking forward to an actual different player for this unlimited thing, but also someone who could maybe shake up the other players. Like Telstra and Optus could have really, even Vodafone could have really had something interesting to play against with TPG. I don't know. I'm a little bit confused by this one. I get why they're doing it, but on the one hand, I really, really wanted to see unlimited done differently, and I don't think we're going to see that with this merge. I could be wrong, but I've been trained by you guys to be skeptical, and the skeptic in me tells me that we're probably not going to be that shocked by what happens.
Well, the real skeptics thinks that TPG actually never planned to launch a mobile network, and this whole thing was just a plan to bring Vodafone to the table. And the more you read about that, the more plausible it sounds. So, yeah, we may have all been played.
Oh, I doubt that. I mean, I did see some comments from, I think it was the Boost Mobile CEO, who kind of said, that he wasn't sure that they were ever intending to bring anything to market. But I think they spent a bit too much. And let's face it, this merger could still fall over. Although one of the more interesting aspects, and I know we discussed this the last time this topic came up, is what they're going to do in terms of bidding on mobile spectrum, because they've actually said, irrespective of whether or not the merger goes ahead, because the ACCC could still block it, or they could hit some kind of point where they just go, hang on, no, I don't like you very much.
It's not you,
anymore.
It's me.
Exactly. What they're going to do is they're going to form a joint venture to bid for mobile spectrum, and they're going to share that. And if the merger doesn't go ahead, that's actually probably really good news for TPG in having a mobile network, because they were only ever going to target 80% of the population. This, if they're then saying, right, well, we will share with Vodafone, means they could boost out a lot further. And their big contention as to what they would bring to the mobile market, even though they're not necessarily going to bring that same unlimited play, was that because they've done a lot of dense small cell rollout already, that they would actually boost up the performance of the Vodafone network where there were lots of TPG customers. And look, that could be a big beneficial thing shifting forward, but it's a pretty solid sign that, yeah, they were serious about building stuff. It wasn't just a case of, oh, look, here's this network we could build. Anyone want to merge? Anyone want to merge?
Another interesting angle is that Telstra and Vodafone have been pushing hard on building 4G fallback into their NBN modems. And now but the smaller players, they've got to do a deal with a wholesaler to get decent pricing on the data. So if TPG and Vodafone get together, then it becomes easier for all the TPG brands to offer that kind of 4G fallback as to help them stand out from the other smaller players.
Well, yeah, except that obviously they're not smaller players. And whilst they've said they don't have any plans to ditch those brands, I reckon in the long to medium term, especially considering how much like TPG they already are, I suspect some of them are further chopping block. They don't necessarily make a whole lot of sense.
So, Alex, it's that time of year again. We've got our iPhone rumours coming up. It's all about iPhone X. What have you heard?
Well, so the iPhone 10 was last year's model.
iPhone 10.
Nobody knows how to say that right.
Wrong.
Nobody gets that one right. But the iPhone 10 was last year's model. It's not exactly clear whether or not we'll get the iPhone 11 this year or the iPhone 10 2018 or even just the iPhone 10, because let's face it, Apple's gone with MacBook, it's gone with iPad. It doesn't do model numbers in those ranges anymore, so it might even go down that path. But it's expected that they'll actually have their formal announcement within about the next fortnight, if history's any guide, about mid-September with a late September release. But so far, what we're seeing isn't that much of a jump from last year's models. The iPhone 10 was a big redesign. It had Face ID, it had the notch, which whilst it wasn't the first to have the notch, it was the first to have a mainstream notch. It was the first to really push that design idea out there into the mainstream. And it looks like this year's 3 iPhone models will follow that with 1 LCD and 2 OLED-based models. The LCD will be a little bit cheaper than the OLED models, although it'll sit mid-range of the sizes. But it looks like we're kind of heading for what Apple used to dub, or what used to be dubbed by pundits, an S year, which is to say it's the performance year rather than the year where they throw a whole bunch of sexy new features at us.
So, Lee, what do you want to see from the iPhone 10? I forget that we're Roman numerals. Do you know my friend Glutamus Maximus?
I still argue with Apple on that name, because everyone I know calls OS X, not Mac OS 10, and there have been so many number variants that I actually don't know if we're calling the iPhone X the iPhone 10 in that way. I think Apple's really messed with us all on that one. I don't know what I really want to see. I want to see a better camera. That's what I want to see. But there are a lot of people I know who have taken a look at the iPhone 10, iPhone X, whatever you want to call it, and gone, I still want the button. And I think they're going to be really disappointed this year, because I get the feeling there'll be 3 iPhone 10 style devices, and Apple will just say, well, if you want the button, it's kind of like wanting a small phone with the iPhone SE. Got to go for last year's model. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, the rumours around the camera do not suggest a great deal of innovation. There's some early rumours that suggested that they might go triple camera on the high-end model, but those seem to have evaporated. Most of the case designs, most of the leaks, such as they are, point to dual cameras on the OLED models and then a single camera on the LCD ones. So I don't know that this is the year where they're really going to push camera technology, although it's fairly predictable that they'll go down the kind of go down the AI route that we've seen from Huawei and LG and a bunch of other makers this year in terms of automatic camera modes, which obviously wouldn't necessarily be your cup of tea, Lee, because I know you're more of a manual photo.
I am, but I did like the way I could see some of the AI work on the Huawei models, and kind of on the Samsungs. I guess it was there, but it didn't feel like it did much. I like that it's there, even if I don't use it very often. What I want is more low light, and I think we've seen from both Huawei and we'll probably see it from Sony and the Xperia XZ2 Premium shortly, that we're focusing more on low light as an actual thing. And Samsung did an okay job with the S9 Plus, and the low light in the iPhone 10 is actually okay, but I know because I take pictures of my baby while she's sleeping. I'm that creepy dad. And I know that out of all of them, the only one...
You're that doting dad.
Yeah, doting creepy, whatever.
That is a genre in itself, to be honest.
Probably, especially this weekend. But I know that like we get all the devices, and I know the only one that gets a clear shot in pitch black, basically, or in as close to it, is the P20 Pro. It is literally the only thing. And I do like an iPhone. I like it more than I thought I would. I think it's the Apple Watch that makes me like it that more. And I want the iPhone 10 to just have better low light, because right now I just feel in video mode and even in still mode, it doesn't really cut it for me.
So apart from a better camera, what else would you like to see from the iPhone X Marks the Spot 10 thing?
I'm not actually sure. More durability would be nice. It's hard to evolve at this point.
Oh yeah, durability.
Durability on
things are bloody expensive.
It is, and it's expensive to replace. And
battery life.
Yeah, well, no.
Battery life.
You say that. Okay. How much battery life?
A mysterious voice says that. I didn't say that.
How much battery life do you get out of your iPhone 10, guys?
Out of the 10, less than a day. The 10 does not have great battery life. The battery life model for my money and in my testing from last year's set was the 8
Absolutely.
Plus. The 8 Plus walked all over the 10, and I thought it was a much... Honestly, I still think the 8 Plus is actually a better phone than the 10, although the 10 has some interesting design ideas. On that battery front, though, the one thing that might please the Mac faithful, if it's true, is the rumor that Apple's going to switch to USB-C chargers. That doesn't mean that they'll have a USB-C plug on the phone. That'll still be Lightning, but the cable itself will be Lightning to USB-C, which means it'll plug directly into a MacBook or into the USB-C charger. Not exactly clear whether or not they'd also offer a Lightning to A cable in the box, although it'd be trivially cheap for them to do so. But then Apple likes making money, not spending money. So we'll have to wait and see.
I have not had terrible battery life with the iPhone 10, but I probably don't use my phone to talk to people as much as I should. But I'm one of those people that uses internet, as in like Twitter and whatnot, to talk to people. I'm weird that way. But for me, it's a durability thing. It's so easy to scratch. It's so easy to break. And some companies actually try to make that better. You know, Samsung's got what they call a shatterproof glass that they're going to roll out eventually. You know, the one thing I would like to see is 5G. We're not going to see it, and it would be nice to be able to test those networks. It's been launched in Queensland. 5G is what I want.
It's going to be a while.
What we might see, what the rumours are suggesting we'll see, though, is the first Category 16, so 1 gig capable iPhones, although they won't, as per the rumours, be running on Qualcomm modems, because Apple and Qualcomm are doing that nasty legal dance that Apple and Samsung were doing years ago. So Apple is reportedly going to shift over to using Intel-based modems. That's going to be a really interesting performance play, especially for Australians. The iPhones are really notable for the fact that, for example, they've never been Telstra Bluetooth phones. They've never had that kind of range, that kind of reach. And switching midstream over to Intel might fix it, but might make it worse.
So where the hell is the Air Power Matte?
Well, that's a really good question, Adam. Apple announced the AirPower Mac
Question without notice.
last year's iPhone, saying, "Oh, it's coming next year because we've got wireless charging, but we're going to do wireless charging right, multiple devices, and your Apple Watch, and everything will charge off our magical AirPower Mat." And since then, they've gone super, super quiet. I'm hopeful that one of the things that they will announce along with the new iPhones is the existence of the AirPower Mat, because obviously it's been some kind of development or costs challenge that they didn't anticipate, because they usually never go that quiet on a product they've physically shown.
You make an
off
interesting point about one of the accessories that we expect to see. I'm really wondering whether the iPhone launch that is coming up more than likely in the next 2 weeks is really even going to be about the iPhone, because when you think about the fact that there is more than likely an iPad Pro coming, and there is more than likely a new Apple Watch coming, not to mention tvOS and all the bloody iOS variations out there, and that rumor of a new MacBook Air, let alone a Mac Mini, it shapes up to be either a really, really interesting, not just iPhone event, or a very packed year. Last half of the year, anyway.
Yeah, except Apple sells a lot more iPhones than anything else in its range. An iPhone launch is still an iPhone launch. They have stacked in lots of other things. Last year, I think, what was it? They stacked in new MacBooks. They started talking about the iMac Pro. They started showing off that new Mac Pro you can't buy yet. So they talk a lot of products at these launches, and the launches just seem to go on and on and on and on. And I'm sure I'll be up at 3 a.m. again to watch one. But well, it's what they pay me the meager dollars for. But they're still ultimately they're still about the iPhones. The iPhones are still the things that get the market excited, that people get excited about. I'm not wholly sold overall, though, based on what's already been rumoured, that this is going to be a year that's going to be terribly exciting. I would love for Apple to prove me wrong and say, hey, look, we cracked foldable phones or flexible batteries or 5 cameras at the back, or it magically makes you coffee or something, because those would be features
That's
I'd really
happen,
like
but
to
hey,
see
Apple, prove Alex wrong.
So, Adam, the big IFA show is on as we speak, and one of the big headline pieces that's come out of it is 8K TV. And look, I've got to be honest, I only just bought a 4K TV and I can barely fill it with content.
Yeah,
Where
me
am
too.
I getting 8K from?
I only finally got my 4K TV this year. I don't know. We've seen 8K TVs at trade shows for a couple of years. Now they're saying they're actually going to start selling them, but there's nothing to watch on them. I don't know. I can't see there being an 8K disc format. Surely Ultra HD Blu-ray has to be the end of the line in terms of physical content. Lee, what's your lounge room like? Have you made the leap to 4K, and can you see 8 in your future?
I still haven't made the leap to 4K. Future? I'm on a very, really mediocre full HD panel, which my wife yells at me for. It's not repeatedly, but somewhat. I don't know if 8K is going to be for everyone. I feel like we're at that point where we're just going to have a hard time convincing people that they've kind of been duped by the name Ultra HD, because they'll go, wait, there's something more Ultra, and then we have to go, well, yeah, it's actually still called Ultra HD. It's just a different variation of it.
Mega Ultra HD.
Hyper Mega Ultra HD. Millions of pixels and nothing to see.
Right, basically, but it's strange because Ultra HD means anything 4K onwards. So 8K is Ultra HD, and 10 and 12K, we actually have a resolution for 16K, and just imagine telling people that in 15 years' time, that 4K panel that should be able to last you a long amount of time is kind of going to be obsolete then as well. I mean, we know that technology goes like this, but with TVs, it's as you guys said, there's not really going to be any media to show it off outside of the demos that TCL, Sony, everyone else is going to end up having. It started with Samsung and LG from the looks of things. LG's got an OLED that they showed very early at CES, but now, as opposed to just being an 8K display, now it's actually an 8K TV. That's where the press release variations were, apparently. And Samsung's got a QLED panel that, in typical Samsung style, is stupidly bright, and I say stupidly in the nicest of ways, stupidly bright, and measures that 7680 by 4, I can't remember all of it. It's 8K, and it's stupidly large, has 33 million pixels inside. HDMI 2.0 does support it, but as you said, there's no media, which suggests that upscaling is going to have to do for a while, because I don't believe we're going to get a 8K Blu-ray format. That just doesn't make any sense to me, especially given how big those files would be. And I can see maybe Apple doing an 8K, I don't know, maybe in 2024 when it decides that format is worth its time. I mean, 4K is good enough quality for most people. Not many movies that I know of are shot beyond 6K, so I'm vaguely curious to know how much upscaling we'd actually have to do in order to get it looking good on those screens. I think the long and short of this is that 8K TVs are going to be out for people with very, very deep pockets who want the best TV they can find, and they'll be out in early next year. So right now we're just kind of seeing glimpses, but you're not going to have anything to play on them outside of things you've shot yourself on, say, a new camera, or even when that feature trickles down to the next Galaxy.
And if you've got
even then, you're going to hit the problem of delivery. I mean, especially here in Australia, who's going to have, off the top of my head, the minimum required spec for 4K streaming is about 25 meg, I believe.
It can be less. Megabit. You can do it on less if you're using HEVC or whatever it is. But yes, at least
265 you can, correct.
So 8K is going to be 4 times that. You're going to need presumably 100 meg.
60 to 100 meg.
You're going to need to live at Kirribilli House in order to get 8K. Yes. So we know that they're going to install one for the Prime Minister, but we don't know which Prime Minister is going to have access to it, because that changes every 10 minutes.
Yeah. It's crazy, but we are seeing a few players like Samsung, LG, TCL also came out. What was interesting with them is they've actually introduced an Australian model where I think LG didn't say anything about Australia in their announcements. I'm not 100% sure about Samsung, but TCL actually went as far as saying Australia. But even if we see them next year, if you've got the money to buy one next year, you probably don't keep your TV for that long. By the time 8K is actually around, you'll be ready to buy your next damn TV.
It reminds me of when those first 4K models came out. I remember, I think it was CES 2013 or something like that, and Samsung had the Series 9. It was amazing, the most pretty display ever. And then the next year, it didn't actually work with the current HDMI standard because the ports on the back were actually a slightly different technology. So you had this amazing panel that only worked with demo material. I really worry it's going to be kind of like that. I hope we've learned our lesson, but I'm usually... Again, I'm skeptical. We go back to the thing. I'm super skeptical that we're actually going to learn our lesson, so they'll find another way to sell you this stuff. I don't think also, and this is the other big deal, I don't think anyone can really see the difference between a 4K and an 8K TV. Like most of the media that we're looking at, when's the last time you wanted to watch, Batman or Star Trek, and you wanted to see the pores on Chris Pine's or Christian Bale's face? It's not really something that matters that much. It's nice to have. Half of the time, I'm just trying to convince people to turn bloody motion technologies off their TV, let alone worry about the detail.
Don't even start me on that.
Now I absolutely want to see Cesar Romero's painted over mustache in Batman 66 in 8K just to see how painfully obvious that thing is. And I will not rest until that happens.
But that's an interesting point that you make, because those things are shot in like 16 and 35 mil, and that's kind of the limit. And there has been a constant discussion about this as, when you convert these film formats to digital, where the limit is. And I keep wondering whether 4K is kind of that limit. It's kind of all we really need. I don't really think we need a lot of media in 8K. I could be proven wrong. One day someone will show me an amazing...
Is this your 640K is enough for everyone?
Yes.
At the
moment?
It's that moment. We've got it on tape.
I don't know. I'd love to be proven wrong. In documentaries where, like Chef's Table and David Attenborough things, where making the real life just pop off the screen. Absolutely. But movies are not always like that. And I think the only animated movie I've seen that really pops off the screen, for instance, was the 4K version of Coco. And I haven't seen a lot in 4K yet that has, maybe outside of Deadpool, which looks fantastic, that says this really is going to make so much of a difference more in 8K. I hope I'm proven wrong one day, but I haven't seen anything in 8K. I don't think you guys really have either outside of demos, and so I've got nothing to really work from.
Well, that just about wraps up another episode of Vertical Hold. Thanks to Lee for joining us for the show.
Thanks, guys.
As always, we love to get your feedback on the show, so feel free to comment via Twitter or the Vertical Hold Facebook page.
Thanks everyone for listening, and remember, if you like what you hear, hit that subscribe button, and if you've already subscribed, leave us a review. Vertical Hold, Behind the Tech News, is proudly brought to you by Belkin. So what the hell is an air power mat?
An Air Power Mac.
Oh, sorry, I put that note in. You might want to edit this bit down.
I just was throwing it out there.
Is that the bit that's going to appear at the end?
That says where.
Air Power Mat.
That
Yes,
says
I think
where.
it might be. Oh, where the hell is the Air Power Mat? All right, okay. Let me try that again. So where the hell is the Air Power Mat?
Well, that's a really good question, Adam.